Now, I know that offline, me and you talked about a Rambo of Arabia, for lack of a better word. Is that another alternate script that's floating around?
Rambo of Arabia, they called it that because the production had so many different characters that it felt like a Lawrence of Arabia. But essentially, it's the Rambo 3 novelization. And I think it's the first draft of the new plot, which is the plot for Rambo 3, but very early on, it had a lot more characters in it, and it was really, it was almost completely different. And then they kept on changing the script, but Morrell didn't have time to catch up, kind of, because the deadline was approaching, and every time they would send him a new script, essentially he would have to start over. So I believe he used the original, like the first draft, and it's very, very different than the movie we know today. You know, I would say almost 80% different.
All right. Well, I know when we started this, when we first did First Blood, that's the first time I'd read the novel version of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like Craig had mentioned earlier, the novel is a completely different experience.
Mm-hmm.
But to listen to David Morrell talk about it, he really does embrace the Sly version of it. I just wanted to ask you, Matt, personally, do you prefer the movie or the book, just the First Blood, the original one?
Ooh, that's a really good question, because when I first got my hands on that, it was from watching the old, I think it was the 2000 documentary, when the DVD came out.
Yeah.
And I went out and got that book right away. And in my head, I could kind of see the characters from the movie in the book. You know, so it was one of those things where it's like, I guess I kind of I love them equally, but
yeah, I know how you feel. They're similar, but they're far enough apart. It's that perfect valley there where they're far enough apart where they're two totally separate experiences. But like in my mind, it's still Stallone, it's still Brian Dennehy, it's still the same guys. Yeah,
I think the only character when I was reading the book that I thought of differently, I thought maybe for a bit Teasel, because I was going through a big Michael Parks kind of phase, and I kind of saw that going that way. But yeah, like I love First Blood because the movie, because it had such an impact on me of seeing it at a young age, and it was just so crazy to see that kind of movie. And then when I got my hands on the book, it was just this really delightful trip down this whole new road. So I guess I could say I like them both equally.
Yeah, I think the main thing that a Stallone fan can take away from it, even if you're not a big reader, is it really shows how tuned in or connected Stallone is to movie audiences. And we talked on our episode about a lot of the changes he made. The biggest change is the ending, of course. But to watch that movie after reading the book or vice versa, you really see how he took things in the book that you couldn't do, killing a kid, or he made Rambo more reactive as opposed to this sort of soldier who snaps. And they made Rambo a lot more sympathetic for the movie. So it's really a great study in what Stallone, really how he connects with audiences and realizes that they had to make changes or else people would walk out of the theater hating Rambo. And instead he turned him into this amazing sort of icon.
If you film that movie exactly the way it's written, at the end of the movie you're not going to like any of the main characters. Like Rambo's wouldn't be sympathetic to a movie audience. Teasel wouldn't be sympathetic. And like Troutman's really cold in the book. Like you just wouldn't. Like you said, he went in and he said, "Well, I like the main story. I like this character. I'll take this, this, and this, and I'll leave the rest."
So Matt, looping back to Rambo 3 and the novelization right now, you said it's like 80% of it is sort of tuned into that original script. So really, what are some of the main differences between the novelization and the movie that we ended up seeing?
Okay. Well, the beginning is totally different. The beginning is more in tune with Rambo and the Zen. Like a lot of Rambo and going through Buddhist beliefs, the 5 truths of Buddha, and really we were introduced to him in that classic 1972 Rambo fashion where he's hating himself and he's like totally fighting himself on everything. And then he starts to realize that there's these chain reactions of his actions, and he really is just disgusted with himself. And then he's living in this monastery. We learned that after Rambo 2, he kind of met up with these monks, and there's one monk, and he kind of swooned the monk over, and the monk lets him live there. And then he goes and he finds a job being a blacksmith. And the blacksmith guy is just like, the owner of the foundry is just sees a kind of easy way to make money off of Rambo, because he's so big. And then he goes to work in this foundry doing blacksmithing. And then one night he's walking back and he's crossing this warehouse and he finds this, there's like a lot of people out there smoking pot and stuff. And he's kind of like taken by it, because he kind of realizes that it's that whole stick fighting scene. So he starts watching the stick fighters, and he's kind of entranced by it. Eventually, a couple of days later, he decides to take upon stick fighting to punish himself for all these horrible, things that have happened because he was defiant in the past. Yeah, so when he goes into the stick fight, it's not like he's going in to fight. He's actually going in, and they actually like beat him up really bad. Like they crack his skull. They really rough him up bad.
Wow. So the great thing about these novelizations is, I guess David Morrell owns the rights to them, so he was able to release them in new paperback versions as well as really affordable ebooks. And I really love ebooks because I've been able to read so many novelizations or books that were turned into movies that were so hard to get prior to ebooks. I was able to read books like Death Wish or even Nothing Lasts Forever, which they turned into Die Hard. So I definitely recommend reading all of the Morrell books, and I've actually only read First Blood, so I'm actually looking forward to digging down into First Blood Part 2 and Rambo 3. So Matt, I know at the end of the episode we're going to get back with you to talk a little bit about your feelings on Rambo 3 in general. But before we go, is there any moment that you want to highlight for our discussion that really makes Rambo 3 for you?
I think it was the anticipation when I was younger. Rambo 3 is the first Rambo movie that I actually got to anticipate coming out. It was the first one I actually saw specials on TV or TV spots or trailers and all that. So for me, it was like the magic of Rambo 3 coming out.
All right, cool. So Matt, I want to thank you again for taking the time to come on and sharing the alternate scripts that are out there and some of the changes in the novelization for our audience. And I know you provided a lot of great info. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys. The pleasure is all mine. You guys rock, man. I love what you guys do, and it's so helpful to the Sly community and just to, in general, just to learn. You're gonna learn. It's like every month I get to learn so much awesome stuff from this show.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. We didn't expect to have this become an ongoing podcast when we started, and the response of the audience was just so overwhelming, and we didn't really, I didn't really know that there was such a passionate fan base out there, and a fan base that is so connected and, so giving in terms of sharing ideas with each other. So I know between SLYCAST and what you're doing with RAMBOMANIA, there are some great resources out there for people. So yeah, keep it up. I know we definitely enjoy what you're doing.
All right. Can I just add that as we were speaking on First Blood and that before.
Yeah.
There's an actual reissue scheduled this month for print.
Oh, cool.
Like a special edition with Gauntlet Press. I ordered mine yesterday. Their collected series, I think there's only 500 versions of one and 52 versions of another.
Oh, wow. And is there going to be any new content?
Yeah, tons. I think there's on the lettered edition, I believe there is a whole chapter before the opening chapter of the book, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Like a lost chapter?
Yeah, there's people can check it out on gauntletpress.com, and it's even going to come with a poster of Kirk Douglas in his Troutman getup.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
yeah, definitely. We're definitely going to we're going to take a look at that, and I will include any pertinent links in the show notes. So, yeah, thank you for that, Matt.
All right, guys. Thanks.